people, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to discuss on the topic of going vegan. I have been vegan for almost 5 years and I have some tips that I would like to share with anyone who is interested in going vegan or just wants to reduce the consumption of animal products. I will split this video in 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about some myths about veganism and why they are not true. In the second, I will give some general tips about going vegan, which can apply to a bigger group of people or places. And in the last part, I will give some tips about being vegan specifically in Macedonia, because this is where I live and there are some helpful things that I've learned over the past 5 years that I would like to share. So let's get going. There are plenty of myths about veganism that people believe in, and I would like to share my perspective on some of them and explain why I find them to be untrue. This one really depends on which vegan products you're looking at. I'm aware that products that are specifically marked as vegan and usually made as substitutes for animal products are a bit more pricey than we would like them to be. But when we say that being vegan is expensive, we tend to forget about the whole foods like fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, which you can buy in bulk at a reasonable price. Also, if you want to eat at restaurants all the time, the food will be expensive whether it's vegan or not. But when you cook at home and your diet doesn't consist of a bunch of processed foods, you can actually save a lot of money on food. If plant milk, for example, is too expensive for you, you can make it at home using oats, almonds, hazelnuts, coconut, etc. There are many alternatives. And when it comes to vegan cheeses, burgers and stuff like that, they're usually more expensive because the demand on them is not as big as the demand on meat and dairy products. But as more people start adopting a more plant-based lifestyle and the demand increases, the prices will inevitably go down. In the meantime, if you don't feel like spending so much money on food, just explore some cheap recipes and become best friends with your kitchen. Plus, nothing can compare with the taste of homemade food. I used to believe this too. I thought that excluding animal products would take all the fun out of my life and I would have to eat only lettuce all day long. Oh boy, was I wrong. There are around 300,000 edible plants, yet we insist that consuming the same 3 animals over and over again is somehow better. In today's world, we have vegan ice cream, pizza, burgers, hot dogs, pancakes, cake. Basically, anything that you can imagine can be made vegan. And if we set fast food aside, there's still plenty of recipes you can cook at home using different vegetables and different spices. Because let's face it, it's the spices that give our food most of the flavors that we like. Where do you get your protein from? Is a question that every vegan has gotten at least once in their life. It's a common misconception that you cannot get the amount of protein your body requires from vegan food. This is absolutely not true. There are a lot of plant-based sources of protein that you can find in almost every grocery store. You can get protein from tofu, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, etc. So if you're scared of protein deficiency, fear no more, because plants have got your back. This is absolutely not true, and here's your living proof of it. Vegans come in all shapes and forms, and although eating a plant-based whole food diet has helped many with weight loss, we are not skinny by default. Not every vegan is vegan because of the health benefits, and let's not forget that French fries are vegan. At the end of the day, if you consume more calories than you spend, you will gain weight. I'm aware that there are many other myths about veganism, but I will leave it at these 4 for the sake of time and because these are the ones that I've encountered the most. Now let's share some general tips on going vegan. I know I might sound like a motivational speaker with this tip, but hear me out. When it comes to making big changes in your life, knowing why you're doing what you're doing is pretty damn important. If you try to do something just because it's trendy and everyone else is doing it, but you don't really have a solid reason for doing it, you will either give up quickly and blame all your problems on that decision, or you will continue doing it but you won't derive any joy from it. When it comes to going vegan, different people have different reasons. Some do it for the health benefits, some for the environment, some for the animals. There are other reasons as well, but those are the main 3. For me, it's a mix of all 3, but it's mostly ethical because I cannot stand the thought of a living sentient being having to die just so that I can have food on my plate. But it wasn't always like this. I will make a separate video about how and why I went vegan, but for now I will briefly mention the very beginning of my journey. Basically, my brother suggested that we should remove animal products from our diet for a week and see what the results would be. I saw this as a challenge and I hopped on board. At this point, I only had a vague idea of what it meant to be vegan. During that experimental week, I did my research and I watched this documentary called Earthlings. An hour into the documentary, I was hugging my dog and sobbing, and in that moment, I promised to myself that I would never go back to consuming animal products. So for me, what has made veganism so easy over the past 5 years is the promise that I made to myself back then. And that's why I think that having a strong reason for going vegan is something that you need if you don't want to give up the minute you're faced with a hurdle. When you first get into veganism, you'll be flooded with all these programs and diets and ways you should consume food, and high carb, low carb, high fat, low fat, high protein, low protein, and blah blah blah. You'll be overwhelmed. If you try to listen to everyone at once, your head will likely explode. So my advice is to do your research and create a plan that works for you. This can require looking up recipes that are simple to make and don't require going to the other side of the world to get the ingredients. I recently made a video about simple and easy vegan breakfast ideas, which I will link down below. I suggest taking baby steps when it comes to introducing new food into your daily life, and mostly working with the ingredients that you already have at home. Tailor your eating habits to your personal needs, listen to your body, and you'll be okay. And when it comes to cosmetics and clothes, it might be a bit hard at first to find vegan and cruelty-free alternatives. But again, do your research and find stuff that works for you. You don't have to throw out all your leather shoes and jackets the second you become vegan, but next time you need a piece of clothing, explore vegan options. Different people go through change at different paces, and that's okay. Some people become vegetarian first and then slowly start ditching eggs and dairy. It might take a few months or even years to go fully vegan. Other people though make the change overnight, as was the case with me. I was a heavy meat eater and I consumed every dairy product under the sun. But my transition was overnight. One day I was eating animal products and the other I just wasn't. For me it was much easier this way because I'm a person who is much more comfortable with making drastic change than taking it step by step. Ditching animal products quickly felt like ripping off a band-aid in one swift motion. But that's just me, and I understand that not everyone is like that. My point is, don't feel pressured to make the change one way or the other. Find the best way that works for you and stick to it. Going vegan will be much easier if you surround yourself with people who have been vegan for a while and can help you make the change. Reach out to someone who you know is vegan and ask them for some help. And if you don't know anyone around you who is vegan, you can always turn to social media and find some people to follow who will inspire you and help you go vegan. There are Facebook groups where vegans gather to share different tips and recipes, and a lot of vegan memes, which is my favorite way of using Facebook. And if you need more advice or just a fellow vegan to chat with, you can contact me on Instagram and I will be happy to help you out. B12 is a vitamin produced by bacteria which herbivorous animals absorb in their digestive systems. It can also be found to some extent in soil and plants. What a lot of people don't know is that B12 deficiency is not only present in vegans and vegetarians, but also in meat eaters. You can get your dose of B12 from B12 fortified foods or from a daily supplement. Different countries have different recommendations for B12 intake, but the general consensus is that 2.4 micrograms per day is the optimal dose. This is not a specific tip, but it is something that I want to briefly mention. If you still live with your parents and you decide to go vegan, things can get pretty hard, especially if you come from a Balkan household where not a day can go by without animal products. A lot of parents don't know anything about veganism and they are afraid that veganism will ruin their child's health. I was 15 when I went vegan and my parents were worried that I would mess up my health. So me being the diplomat that I am, told them that I would get my blood checked after a few months of becoming vegan, and if something was wrong, I would go back to consuming animal products. Now, I had no intention of ever going back, but this calmed my parents, and when I got the blood test results, everything was great, so they stopped being afraid. So my advice here is to sit down with your parents, tell them that you're going vegan, and to educate them about the benefits of veganism. I suggest showing them a study or a documentary about the health side of veganism if you think this will soothe their nerves. This also helped me when I was dealing with my parents. I think those are all the tips that I have for going vegan in general. If I think of something else, I'll mention it in the description. Now let's talk about being vegan in Macedonia and some things you need to know that will make going vegan easier if you live here. Macedonia is not the most vegan-friendly country, but you can still be vegan without many difficulties. We might not have a lot of vegan alternatives, but we always have fresh produce, so you will never lack delicious fruits and vegetables. There are some additional tips that I would like to share, so let's get on to them. In the capital city, there are a few places that are fully vegan and some places that offer vegan options. But this is not the case in other smaller towns. In my hometown, there are no vegan restaurants or cafes, and I haven't seen specifically vegan options in restaurant menus. What I do when I go to a restaurant is ask the waiter if they can make a certain dish vegan or if they can make something off the menu. If that's not a possibility, I'll just order a salad and a plate of potatoes and mushrooms and call it a day. But most of the time, they are able to modify a certain dish and make it vegan. For example, I have ordered a vegetarian pizza without the cheese, a risotto with vegetables without the meat, a salad without the white cheese that comes with it, and other stuff. A helpful thing would be to say that you're fasting and that's why you want something without animal products, because that way you won't have to explain what being vegan means, since most of the waiters have no clue and will stare at you blankly. If you don't like what restaurants have to offer, cooking your meals at home is always a good idea. As I mentioned, there are a lot of fruits and vegetables that you can find in every grocery store, along with white beans, chickpeas, legumes, etc., and you can whip up a delicious meal in no time. Plus, you'll save money and improve your cooking skills. Also, there is a Macedonian Facebook group dedicated to vegan products and recipes that I will link down below. I don't recommend checking it out late at night because you will want to eat everything in sight. Although meat is very much present in the Macedonian cuisine, there are some traditional dishes that are vegan or can be made vegan easily. My favorites are baked beans, stuffed peppers, and the almighty ayvar, which is present not just in our cuisine but in our Balkan countries as well. There aren't many vegan alternatives in Macedonian stores, but there are some products which you can find in certain stores, such as tofu, cheese, white cheese, mayonnaise, hot dogs, chocolate, sweets, snacks, and a lot of different kinds of plant milk, such as oat milk, coconut milk, hazelnut milk, almond milk, soy milk, oat milk, rice milk, etc. When it comes to certain products, you won't find the word vegan on them, but you can make sure they don't contain animal products by checking the ingredients list. At first, it will be hard to read all those small letters on every product you buy, but after a while you'll get used to it and you will be able to detect vegan products with ease. If you work out a lot and you want a plant-based protein supplement, you can find that as well. Most supplement stores here have vegan options such as soy protein, pea protein, wheat protein, and other stuff, and usually the plant-based protein is cheaper than whey protein, but it's still effective. When it comes to cruelty-free and vegan cosmetics, it's a bit harder to find what you need here. However, there is a store where you can find a bunch of vegan and cruelty-free makeup, hygiene products, cleaning products, and other things. That is the store DM, which is located in 7 different cities in Macedonia. Not all of the products there are vegan, but they have several brands that offer vegan and cruelty-free stuff. And that's pretty much it. I'm aware of the fact that being vegan is easier in countries such as Germany or France, for example, but being vegan here in Macedonia is not impossible, and it's not even hard once you get used to it. Alright, I think that's all that I have to say. Again, if I come up with something else, I'll leave it in the description, and if you have any other tips or questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching it, and I'll see you next week.